Hey YouTube, Carrots Week here, bringing you guys my Vampire Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile for May 2018. Wanted to bring you guys this deck profile since Dark Saviors came out this weekend. It's a really awesome deck, actually very affordable as well compared to a lot of the other cards in the set. So if you're looking to build a deck that's price-worthy in this set and very easy to put together, this is definitely the deck for you. And also a lot of fun too, since we've already gotten some of the vampire support beforehand, including the new Link Monster Vampire Sucker, which just definitely does help in the deck overall since all the vampire monsters are zombie. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. Start off, I run 3 Vampire Scarlet Scourge. Most of the vampire monsters in this deck are pretty high level, but all very easy to special summon out to the field, or just normal summon for their abilities. If this card is normal or special summon, you can pay 1,000 life points, then target 1 vampire monster in your graveyard, except for Scarlet Scourge. Special summon it, but it cannot attack this turn. You can only use this effect of Scarlet Scourge once per turn, and at the end of the battle phase, if this card destroyed any monster by battle, you can special summon them from the graveyard to your field. So with his special summon abilities, it's very easy for you to go into your main Exceed monsters, which are the true powerhouses of this deck for sure, along with your other Link monsters. But like I said, just getting him out very fast can set up a lot of different plays for you, especially if you can get to those extra deck monsters, because then you just, can go all out from there. And I also run 3 Vampire Retainer. With this card, if this card is special summoned, you can pay 500 life points, add 1 vampire spell or trap from your deck to your hand. If this card is in your graveyard, you can send 1 vampire card from your hand or face it from the field to the graveyard. Special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. And you can only use each effect of Retainer once per turn. Another easy way just to have like a tribute fodder out for your bigger vampires, obviously, with just an easy special summon. And you have to remember with a lot of your zombie monsters also, if they're in the graveyard, they're much easier to get out to the field with their own effects, including cards like Mizuki and whatnot. So if you discard that basically to the field from your hand to the graveyard, you have much more easier methods to special summon out cards from the graveyard. So a definite 3 of as well. The same goes for Vampire's Familiar. With this card, if this card is special summoned, you can pay 500 life, add 1 vampire monster from your deck to your hand, except for Vampire Familiar. So basically the mirror card to Retainer in those bases. If this card's in your graveyard, you can send a vampire card from your hand or face it from the field to the graveyard, special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. Now, what I love is that they gave us Familiar and Retainer, which both are just easy special summons to the field. They search out cards as well for just an easy 500 life point, cost, and then you just grab what you need for that search, whether it be the spell or trap with the Retainer or the monster with Familiar, and then you can just tribute them to get out your bigger vampires. And I also run 2 Vampire Fraulein. With this card, when a monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense. You can only use the effect of Fraulein once per turn, and once per battle. If your zombie monster battles an opponent's monster during the damage calculation, you can pay life point in multiples of 100, max 3,000. Your battling monster gains that much attack and defense during the damage calc only. At the end of the battle phase, if this card is destroyed by opponent's monster by battle, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. So it's just an easy special summon, but the attack boost definitely does help. Just be wary with how much you're spending, but it can save you in some tricky situations. Plus, the defense shield that she sits on is pretty handy at times, depending on what you're going up against. Also, 2 Vampire Duke. Now, this is the one card we didn't get, surprisingly, in Dark Saviors, but still very, very good to run in the deck. When this card is normal summon, you can target 1 Dark Vampire monster in your graveyard, special summon that target in face-up defense position, and when this card is special summoned, you can declare 1 card type, monster, spell, or trap. Your opponent sends 1 card of that type from their deck to the graveyard, and you can only use the effect of Duke once per turn, and this card cannot be used as Exceed material except for the Exceed summon, except for a Dark monster, which is really not that difficult since you'll be going for Vampire Braum most of the time when you can with this card. So make full use of this guy for sure for that summon. And I also run 1 Vampire Red Baron. Once per turn, you can pay 1,000 life points, and then target 1 monster your opponent controls and 1 other vampire monster you control. Switch control of those monsters, and at the end of the battle phase, if this card destroyed any monster by battle, you can special summon them from the graveyard to your field. So I just run 1 Red Baron just because it's situational depending on what you want to go for. Plus, you can also search it out, so if you need it for that one play, you can definitely just grab him and then go off from there. And that is it for the vampire monsters. For the remaining zombie monsters in the deck, I run 3 Shiranui Solitaire. Shiranui Solitaire just helps so much with being able to search out the Unizombie by tributing this card. And then Unizombie with the level adjustment and the synchro options it gives you just allow for more plays to be made with all your different monsters in the deck. And speaking of Unizombie, 3 of it as well. The send effect, the level adjusting, the fact that it is a tuner, just open up so many different plays for you. You can go for a Mega, you can go for Beals, a lot of powerful synchros for sure with this guy can be made for your favor. And also 3 Mizuki with your familiars and your retainers. You can basically add, and if this card is in the graveyard, by sending a vampire forward from your hand or face up to the field. Just having that extra special summon option with Mizuki, and then, you know, the additional reliance of familiar and retainer for easy special summons to the field to use, just come in great handy work, especially with this deck. And that is it for the monsters. We'll move on to the spells. I run 2 Vampire Desires. Now this is like your level adjustment card for the deck. You target one face-up monster you control, send 1 vampire monster from your deck to the graveyard with a different level from that monster, and if you do, that targeted monster becomes the level of that monster in your graveyard until the end of this turn. And then you can, other effect is you can target 1 vampire monster in your graveyard, send 1 monster you control to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon that targeted monster, and you can only activate 1 Vampire's Desire per turn. But you get to choose one of those effects. It helps with your Exceed summons, depending on if, you know, you just need those proper level matchups, depending on what, you know, Exceed you want to go for. But definitely needed in the deck. Just 2 of, though. If you run 3, I was coming up with a lot of dead draws with this card otherwise, but it's just that right amount of level adjustment you need for those summon plays. And also 2 Vampires Domain. Once per turn, you can pay 500 life points. During your main phase this turn, you can normal summon 1 vampire monster in addition to your normal summoner set. Even if this card leaves the field, you can only gain this effect once per turn, and each time your vampire monster inflicts battle damage to your opponent, gain the same amount. So the additional normal summon definitely comes in handy when you just open up these cards in your hand, whether it be Retainer, and then, you know, Scourge, Duke, and you just need to go from the normal to the tribute. Domain definitely is another answer that was needed for the deck just to help with those situations. And also I run 1 Book of Life, this along with Monster Reborn, which I also run 1 of. Just very definitely come in handy with the special summon prowess. Now a lot of attacks are involved in this deck for a lot of different effects, so I didn't really want to run Soul Charge, but these 2 definitely, you can go off so much from just 1 big vampire on the field. So being able to special summon and then, you know, also banish off the Book of Life from your opponent's graveyard can take one of their pesky answers, but Monster Reborn definitely does help in this deck as well. And all the vampire monsters and a good amount of some of the other monsters we run are dark, so I run 3 Allure of Darkness just with the draw power. Definitely does help in the deck to run this. And also 1 Vampire Kingdom, just for the field spell option. The zombie monsters gain 500 attack, and during the damage calc only, once per turn, when a card is sent from your opponent's deck to the graveyard, target 1 card on the field, send 1 dark vampire monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard. If you do destroy that target, it's also searchable with your other, with your retainer, so remember that. Most of the times that's how I like to grab this card to use. Don't really like drawing into it, but if I'm able to search it for that option, if I already have some of my other vampire spells, including Desire and Domain, taken care of, just that extra additional search to go for. And also 1 Foolish Burial. This is to search and send Mizuki to the graveyard to get easy special summons off of. And that is it for the spell cards. We will now move on to the traps. I run 3 Vampire Awakening. With this card, special summon 1 vampire monster from your deck, but destroy it during the end phase of this turn. You can only activate 1 Vampire Awakening per turn. It helps so much with just your setup of some of your other different plays you want to go for, whether it's going to be a Link summon or an Exceed summon. Not being able to obviously destroy during the end phase, you want to obviously make something of it. And lastly, for the main deck, 3 Vampire Domination. Might bump this down to 2. Was adjusting some of the numbers, you know, depending on how many other Book of Life I want to run, or just some other draw options as well. Maybe some, you know, Twin Twisters, just for back row protection to help with the deck. But Domination definitely does care for some of those problems. When a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated while you control a vampire monster, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Then if there is a monster card, gain life points equal to its original attack. So with the gain, it also helps with all the cost for like 500 and 1,000 life points that you pay for all your different effects. But more protection, another answer, just for dealing with a lot of the different spell, trap, and monster effects we see in opponents' decks. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra. I run 2 Damper, Vampire, Sheridan. You need 2 level 6 monsters. If you use a monster with a level that is owned by your opponents for an Exceed summon of this card, treat it as level 6. And once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 card your opponent controls, send it to the graveyard. And once per turn, if a monster is sent from the field to your opponent's graveyard by a card effect, or a monster is destroyed by battle and sent to your opponent's graveyard, you can detach 1 material from this card to special summon that monster to your field and defense. So basically making full use of your opponent's resources using this card. Very powerful. Definitely a cool answer for some of the options we had with the Vampire Exceeds given to us in the form of Sheridan. And also 1 Vampire Braum. You detach 1 Exceed material from this card to target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon that target to your field, but only that monster can attack for the rest of this turn. If you use the effect of Braum once per turn, and once per turn during your standby phase, the next turn after the card you control is destroyed by an opponent's card and sent to your graveyard, you special summon it in defense. So more revival special summon effects. Just 1 though, for those options you have with your rank 5s. And also 1 number 24, just another good additional rank 6 to run with your dark monsters for sure. And plus it has Vampiric Dragon in the name as well, so remember that. And then for the synchros, for the Shiranuis, I run 1 Shogun Saga and 1 Samurai Saga. You can take out the Samurai Saga if you want and put in a Black Rose Dragon, just so you have some level 7 options with the Unizombie as well, if you want. But for the level 8s, 1 Omega, 1 Red Dragon Archfiend Scarlight, and 1 Beals. These definitely do come in handy when you use the bump up level effect with Unizombie and then go for an 8, just to have those 3 different options to use. And for the Link monsters, 2 Vampire Sucker. This card's actually relatively cheap now, so if you're looking to pick these up for the deck, quite easy. 2 zombie monsters. If you would tribute a monster for a tribute summon, you can tribute a zombie monster your opponent controls, even you do not control them. You can only use each effect of the following Vampire Sucker once per turn. You can target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it to your opponent's field and defense, but it becomes a zombie monster. And if a zombie monster is special summoned from either graveyard, draw 1 card. So you have awesome answers with this card, with a lot of your different effects, which is definitely why it's one of the best Link monsters to go into with this deck. But some of your other backup options, Borreload, just for another power one, and then also am trying out the Nightmare Engine of Cerberus, Phoenix, and Unicorn, just for more easy Link summons. All you need is different names, which can be easily accomplished with this deck. But yeah, that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Once again, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And until next time, Kira Twig out.